Alright everybody, welcome to Computer Applications. This is the just basic syllabus. You'll find it on Canvas under the syllabus link. So let's just go through basically what you're going to see in the class this coming semester. Now, Computer Applications covers a wide variety, mostly Microsoft applications. We've got, of course, Word, we've got Excel, we've got Outlook, we've got Access, PowerPoint, and we'll cover a couple of other things as well, computer-oriented, maybe some interesting applications throughout the semester that you may want to use as well. So we'll scroll on down. Now, methods of instruction for this. Everything that we do will be posted on Canvas. If you're physically in class, then, well, I'll be there to tell you what to do. If you're online or taking it some other method, then, I will also leave you some directions or instructions. Pretty much anything I do in class, whether it's a lecture or something like that, there will typically be a video over that. But most of the assignments will come, on the computer. So, and if you're physically in class, you'll do those in class. So how it will basically work is, at the beginning of a section, I will give a little lecture about here's what we're going to be doing and kind of give you the overview of the application. Then you get your hands dirty and you go and actually do stuff in those applications. The easiest way to learn how to do something is to do it, not just watch endless videos or PowerPoints or watch somebody else do it. It's for you to do. So that being said, that means there's a fair bit of work involved. Now, none of it is incredibly difficult, I would say, but there is a decent amount of it. Now, this class also tends to have a good number of different skill levels. You'll have people who have used maybe these applications quite a bit. You'll have some people who have never used, maybe they've opened up Word and typed a couple of things, but that's it. They don't really know all of the little features and things that go in there. I don't think I've ever had a person take the class who, didn't pick up a couple of things regardless of where they were. Because there's always adding new things, there's always something that you don't know, and some of it can be particularly useful, depending on what you're doing in your classes or job or wherever else. So, as I said, we're going to be doing a fair bit of projects. Now, the structure of the semester will go pretty much like this. We'll start a section, I will lecture over that section. For anyone online, or even if you're not online, there will be videos of that, pretty much that same lecture posted as well. And this is the application, ta-da. And then some assignments will be posted. Some will be through SAM, which is kind of a companion site for the book. They have trainings and some projects you can turn in, and they automatically grade things. Others will be turned in and it'll be from the book. Those will be submitted on Canvas, and I have to grade those. So you may see like a little piece of paper or something like that. That means it hasn't been graded yet, but it's been turned in. And throughout the entire semester, you should be able to see what is due, what you've done, what your grade is, and all that. Now, once we finish a section, and a section usually is probably about 2 chapters, then we have the test over that section. So once we do that test, that is when everything is going to be due. Now, if you're online, you typically have to turn in at least one thing every week for attendance and all that. If you're physical, well, you still should be turning in stuff every week. But since you're physically there, that you physically being there will be your attendance. Now, it's very easy to get a little bit behind. Maybe you miss a day, maybe you didn't do quite as much. That's one thing I would caution you about. The easiest way to basically not pass this class, despite how easy it is to just not do the work. And like I said, there is a lot of it, but none of it is incredibly difficult. I'm not going to say it's super exciting, but I try to make it as interesting as possible, and you will learn some stuff by doing it as well. Now, once we get to test, I'm fine if you, let's say you're in a physical class. You submit I give maybe 5 assignments that week, and you do 3 and you missed a day. That's fine. As long as you turned in something, those other 2 can still be turned in later. And to the point, if you turn something in and you miss something on it, you can just fix it, turn it back in, and I will regrade it. And you can do that up until test day. Once we take the test, everything is due. Corrected, turned in. Anything not turned in will be a 0. That's true for online and physical. So you just have to simply just make sure you get it all turned in before that date. Now, if you kind of fall behind a little bit, you don't want to end up during test week having to try to do 20 odd assignments, in that week, all when you're supposed to be doing the test. The way the test is designed is essentially, if you've done the work in the assignments, there's not much to study for the test. There's going to be some terms, which I'll post and talk about in lectures and stuff. But the bulk of the test will typically be physical for most of those. Meaning, in Word, for example, you'll go into Word and you'll make something. And if you've done those assignments, that is remarkably easy because you've done all the work that I'm going to be asking you to do. If you haven't, then you get to the test and you may not know how to do some of the stuff I'm asking. You'll miss that part. On top of probably missing all the assignments you didn't turn in. And that is usually when people's grades drop really quickly, because once test comes, those are 0s and they don't change. So as long as you make sure you do all your work, honestly, getting a good grade on the test is fairly easy. So try your best not to fall into that trap of getting a bit behind. I usually give, a couple of weeks, a month for every test that we do. So you've got plenty of time. You just have to kind of allot it. If you're physically in my class, you'll be doing it in class with me. You can ask questions, raise your hand. Hey, how do I do this? And I will come over there and tell you. If you're online and you need some help, I have office hours every week. I'm there. Well, we're supposed to be there 10 hours. I'm probably there more than that, honestly. You can also come to any of my other classes. If there's a spot, feel free to sit down and work and ask questions too. I'm perfectly fine with that. Just let me know. And if there's a spot, you're welcome to sit down and work. They're my office hours. There are empty labs all around me. You're more than welcome to sit there. If you have a question, pop over to my office and ask, and I'll help you out. There's plenty of avenues for you to get everything done if you need to. Now, as far as things that are required and stuff like that, well, obviously you need a computer for this class. If you're physical, in person, you'll be doing this in a computer lab. All our computer labs are Windows PCs, and that's typically how the book is created. It's made for PC. Now, Microsoft Office is also on a Mac, except for Access, which is part of this course. We're still kind of adjusting how Access is going to be taught, so it shouldn't be a major problem if you're using a Mac. But it will be a major problem if you're going to try to use a Chromebook or some other computer, tablet or something. A Chromebook is not a PC or Mac. It's basically an internet tablet. You can't install Office and, anything like that on there. You can access Office through the webmail. There is actually a webmail option here where you can get to Office, but this Office is not the Office that we're going to be using for this course. If you take a quick look, you'll see, ta-da, it has a fraction of the options that the full version does. This is really designed just to, maybe open a document you did in Word, or do some quick editing and typing up. It is not designed for you to actually do this class in. So keep that in mind. You need a PC or a Mac. Honestly, preferably a PC, but a Mac software still has everything you need for this class. The major difference is themes are maybe a little, and colors are a little bit different, but everything should still be there that they're going to ask you to do. They may not be in exactly the same place, but it should be there. In the past, most people tend to not have too much of an issue on a Mac aside from the colors. And if you just let me know, that's fine. Pick a color that's kind of similar. As long as everything else looks correct, then it's fine. But you cannot physically do this on a Chromebook or a tablet or something like that. So make sure you have an actual PC or Mac. I can't count the number of people like online who about a month and a half in tell me, well, they don't have a computer or they have a Chromebook. So this is your early warning. You can't do this on a Chromebook. You have to have access to some other computer, whether it's coming to the school or whether it's your own personal computer or friends. And these are the applications we're going to see. Word, Excel, Access, PowerPoint. Those are the softwares we're going to need to do this installed. We're going to talk a little bit about Outlook, and that is an application, but it's not so different from the web version of this, so we're probably typically going to kind of go over the web version of it. But on the computers, if you've got all the other stuff, Outlook goes on everything too. So now, so there's your warning. Grading scale, fairly normal. 90 and up is an A, 89 to 80s a B, and so on. 10-point grading scale. Plagiarism and cheating, don't do it. Microsoft Office has, there's a fair bit of work involved. And Microsoft Office has a bunch of little things that are built into it that you can't really do much about. For example, who created this document, when it was created, how much time was spent editing the document, a list of all the things that were done in the document. It keeps track of everything you've done so you can undo and things like that. If you turn in someone else's work, I would say probably about 99 times out of 100, I will know. If it's not yours and you turn it in, it is a 0. If it's someone else in the class, both of you get 0s the first time. If it happens more than once, I'll give you that warning, you'll get that 0. If it happens the second time, then obviously you don't particularly want to be in this class. If you're going to cheat multiple times in it, you are no longer in the class, so I will help you with that. And then, of course, I have to report you to the dean, and I don't really know what happens there because no one's ever exceeded that one time. Typically what ends up happening is someone left their computer on, they say, and I actually have physically seen somebody get up and leave and somebody go to their computer and start clicking on things. Always log off your computer when you're done. But the most usual way is, oh, I let my friend look at my stuff, I didn't know they were going to turn it in. I don't mind if you help people, like sit next to them, here, click on that, and that does this, click on this. But you've got to do your own work, they've got to do their own work. I had a husband and wife who were turning in the same file, and they're like, well, we're sitting there together, but that's not going to work. You've got to do your own individual assignments. It's not a group project. And the same is true if you're friends, buddies, or just acquaintances. Each one of you have to turn in your own thing, and if you don't, it is 0s. And you're only going to be shooting yourself in the foot if you don't do the work as well. Since the test is based on doing those assignments, if somebody else did them for you, you'll get to the test and probably not do that well on it. So just keep that in mind. Don't cheat. Now, not really any department policies I need to attend to. Attendance, though. Now, if you're physical, if this class, I've got a whole little chart here of how the class breakdowns go, how many absences you get. If you're meeting 3 times a week, you get 6 absences. Now, currently, we have this kind of hybrid thing going where we meet twice a week and then there's one day that's technically considered online, more or less. So you still get 6 absences. If you meet twice a week and there isn't that hybrid thing, then you would have 4 absences. If you meet once a week, then you get 2 absences. If you're online, you get 1 absence a week, so you get 2. Now, an absence in person is not being there in class. You're just not there. Now, if something comes up, you have to go to the doctor or things like that, that is what those absences are for. You're allowed, so many, depending on how long the term is, whether it's a mini term or a full term, whether it is, you're meeting so many times a day or whatever, or so many times a week. And what some people don't quite understand is, you have to go to the dentist or the doctor. That's not an excused absence. Maybe in high school it was, but in college, no, that's what you would use that absence for. But one other thing people don't seem to understand is a lot of the time, you can reschedule those, right? I know people work and have to juggle their schedules. Sometimes you may have to, schedule it during a class time. And as for me, if you wanted to come to one of my other classes to make up for that, let me know ahead of time, and I'm fine with that. You'll still take the class, and I won't count you absent. But if you just don't show up, it's going to be considered an absence. And if you go over absence, then you are not in the class anymore. If it's before midterms, then usually you're just cut out with a withdrawal. If it's after midterms, then it typically means it's an F. So you definitely want to make sure you don't go over those. You get so many absences a semester, it doesn't mean you have to use them. I often have at least 1 or 2 people in every class who are pretty much maxed out within the first month. And they still got like 3 months left to go, or something along the lines of that. So don't fall in that position. If you're online, this is also a place where people tend to stumble a little bit. You have to turn in at least 1 assignment every week. That's for the attendance. 1, don't fall into the trap of just turning in the smallest, shortest assignment. You do that 2 or 3 weeks, and then the test comes, and you've got 20 assignments you haven't done. You're not going to finish those. And you're not going to get an extension. Unless, some major circumstances come up that I know about. And if something like that does happen, talk to your teachers. Talk to us. If someone doesn't show up for class for 2 weeks, I can only assume, well, they're not here. Maybe they gave up or something. I don't know. Maybe something happened, but I don't know for sure. So I have to go with the Northwest policy, which is you went over absences, you're cut. So always tell people what's going on. And there are things you can do, withdrawal. There's incompletes. If like you're stuck in a hospital or something and physically can't come here, there are things you can fill out with the counselors and stuff to, not lose everything that you worked on for the semester. So just keep that in mind. If you have any other questions about that, you can always ask me. Pretty much the attendance policy is the same across the board for most teachers. Although there are some who I will be usually a little more lenient, depending. I'll talk to people if they start going over or getting close to it. But there are some teachers who will straight up, well, you just missed that day, you're not on the roll anymore, without even saying anything. So try your best to keep track of that if you can, and don't go over. Now, there will be evaluations at some point, usually a little bit later, and I do give bonus points for doing those. You just simply have to do them. They are anonymous. You can just simply come over to the side over here, and usually there's an evaluations button that pops up. I think it's this little arrow here, actually, in WCC evaluations. When they're up, you click them, you take them, this little check mark. That's it. The way I usually do it is you just take a little picture of the little check mark and submit that, and I'll give you an extra couple points for doing the evaluation. Evaluations are good for instructors because they let us know what people think of our class. And you can be honest, because unless you state your name or something, oh dear, yeah. Whoop, there we go, headphones cut off. Unless you state your name or something, we don't know who it is. It's all anonymous. So if a teacher is really good, go to their evaluations and say as much. If there's something you don't like or something that didn't work or something you have a problem with, then say as much. I've seen evaluations where a teacher was certainly in trouble because they weren't doing what they're supposed to do. And I've seen others where teachers were praised because they were doing an excellent job. The only way we know that is through those evaluations. Now, statement of authority. Basically, if there's any problem or anything like that, or a student is disruptive, they can be removed from classes, mostly for physical classes, and honestly I've never had to have that happen, so hopefully that never does. Most students are great. I haven't had many problems with anybody, so. The same is true for online, although the only time you usually see them is if they ask for help during final exams or things like that. Now, ADA statement. If you have any disabilities or anything like that, we have the ADA department. You can contact them, fill out a couple of forms. As long as you've got everything checked, your I's dotted, your T's crossed, then there are some extra things you can get. Of course, we have tutoring and all sorts of services. We have English labs, writing center. They can teach you anything in the tutoring labs, from math to science and other stuff. They have a wide array of things they go over. But this will give you things like extra time on tests if you need it, if you have a stated disability. There's some people who have to be like in a silent room with no noise whatsoever to take a test, and they can provide things like that. So I will be getting some emails probably in the next couple of days during this next week, if you're watching this, at the beginning of every semester, telling me who these people are, and they will typically have to sign or say something to me. And if they require any services, then we'll deal with that as it comes across. Safety statement. Now, the safety statement is essentially just talking about, well, fires and tornadoes and things like that. Speaking of which, does it take us directly there, I think? Maybe not. Well then, let's check this one. Bulletin. Well, I will update this link before the video comes out, apparently. I'm sure it's in one of these things at some point. If I scroll down somewhere. And that's a little too long for me to scroll down. But anyway, I happen to have the safety statement right in front of me. And I'll try to post the whole thing here later. So if there's a fire, this of course only pertains if you're physically in the building. If you're online, well, if there's a fire, it's your house or somewhere, put it out. Call the fire department. But if you're in the school, fire alarm will go off, and we will of course exit the building. Depending on where you are, the exits are usually on the side. If you're in the basement, there's a back end exit. It's actually pretty close to the classroom that we're normally in. The alarm is really loud and bothersome. You really won't want to stay in the school in the first place. If you go out and there's fire, then don't go that way. Go the other way. If there's fire that way too, I don't know what we've been doing, but we'll find another way out. Once we get to the parking lot, we'll wait until fire rescue, everybody comes and tries to put everything out. We've never actually had a fire, as of this recording anyway, and hopefully that continues to be the case. Tornadoes, well, simply put, there is a shelter at the school. It's at the basement. Basically, it's a big, long concrete hallway, and everybody just piles up into there. It should be pretty safe, since considering it's just basically a concrete concrete block all the way around. So for the most part, we should be safe in there if there ever is an issue. There's been some warnings, but we never actually had anything come. Earthquakes. Of course, if there's an earthquake, we're all doomed. This is Mississippi. Nothing will be standing if there's an earthquake. If it makes you feel any better, get under your desk and hope. If we're at school, same thing. The best I can say we could hope for was maybe a couple of pre-shocks. We exit the building immediately and get away from things, and hope the ground doesn't disappear under our feet. Yeah, but you never know. We are somewhat 100 years or so overdue for an earthquake. Maybe it'll wait it out. But if an earthquake does happen, if it's sudden, try and get under a desk, try to cover up, and hope. That's pretty much all I think we can do when an earthquake's involved. But our building's fairly sturdy. Hopefully, nothing comes down on us. Now, lockdowns. Again, we haven't had any major issues. We haven't had any tornadoes, fires, earthquakes, or shootings or anything like that. But we do have drills and things like that occasionally at the school. And if, by chance, we have one while you're in class, then generally we just lock the door, cover up, lights off, and be quiet for a couple minutes while they go around. The school itself is not overly large. We have several police officers, and they are actually police officers, not like just security or something like that. And they can get from one side of the building to the other in a minute or less. So if there ever is an issue, we hunker down, and hopefully they'll take care of it quickly. You don't typically want to go running out into the hallway in the middle of gunfire or anything like that. And again, hopefully none of that happens. So we can only hope. And it hasn't to this point. So, all right. That's pretty much a safety statement. This right here is just the course outline of what we're going to cover. We'll have a little bit of Outlook and Word, and I'll probably merge those two kind of in one together because the Outlook portion is really short. There's really not a lot to go over there, unless you really want to get into merging and some more complicated stuff, but we are not going to do that. So, Access and Excel, we'll see which order this happens in. Access is the most difficult portion of this class because with Word, most people have used Word. Excel, even if you haven't really used Excel, you've probably seen it and kind of have an idea of what it's going to do. PowerPoint, you've seen many many PowerPoints, I'm sure. And of course, you probably used it a couple times. You may not know all the features, but we're going to go through those. But Access is a completely different animal altogether, because building a database and how it works is a bunch of rules and things that go with that just aren't inherent. You have to know and learn what those are to be able to use it. So it is one of the more difficult portions of the class. Oh, and as for my information, I am Scott Munger. My office is 220. My room number is, or I say phone number, 6129 at the campus, and my email address. Now, if you want to contact me, though, the easiest way to do that is honestly just straight up Canvas. You send me a message over here, and I will get it on my phone pretty much immediately. Unless I'm in class, I'll usually respond to it fairly quickly. If you call my phone, my schedule pretty much says that I am in class, well, this semester. I have usually about 4 or 5 classes on Mondays, Wednesdays, 2, 3 classes on Tuesday, Thursdays. I'll usually be in class most of the time. I have normally about 10 classes a semester. So the easiest time to get in touch with me is either during office hours, which will be posted, or through that Canvas. You can also email me, and again, it'll come to my phone pretty quickly. So either way. Now, as far as the book, it is built in. It is an ebook. There is a shelf over here, which I'll make a video for that. Actually, I have a video for that already, and it will have your entire book. Now, that being said, I highly recommend you buy the book. As of right now, you can go to the bookstore and give them $1, and they give you the entire book, a printout of the entire book. You'll have to probably put it in a binder or something, but it's $1. You've already paid for the book when you got the course. The physical copy of this book is infinitely easier to use than that ebook. If you go to the ebook, you're going to have to bounce back and forth between tabs and then open up this thing and that thing and go back and forth, maybe put it once on this side, one on that side. It's honestly tedious to use. It is just much easier to have a book to flip in front of you. And that's what I would typically encourage you to do. If you want to use it like on a tablet or something, or if you're fine with the split screen type situation, then by all means. But physical is going to be a lot easier to use. As far as our tests go, we'll have a test over every section that we're going to cover. We have Word and Outlook, we have Excel, we have Access, we have PowerPoint, which will be the last thing we cover, and then we'll have a final exam. Now each test will be pretty much, there'll be a couple of terms, and there'll be an application section of the test where you actually physically do something in that particular program. For Excel, there'd be some terms, and you go into Excel and do the things you were doing in class. Access might be a little bit different. That depends. We'll see how that runs. And PowerPoint, of course, at the end of that, there will be a bit of a PowerPoint presentation. Whether you present it or not, it depends on what we're doing that semester and the timing. Worst case, I guess for students, you'd have to present it. Best case, perhaps, you just have to make sure you turn it in and follow the guidelines. And the final exam will come at the end of the semester, of course, and that will cover pretty much terms and everything that have come from every single section here. There may be a little bit of an application section for each, we'll see, but it basically will be somewhat cumulative. Now, as far as points go, you'll have your tests, of course. You'll have 300-400 maybe or so points lab work, for a grand total of somewhere between 700 and 900-ish. I'm still adjusting assignments, but it'll be in that ballpark. Now, I would say a good portion of the work, like point-wise, will come from assignments. Not doing assignments can drop your grade tremendously. And I do have a few people who will, just not do a lot of the assignments. And even those who are really good and can get 100 on the test, if you don't do the assignments, you're still not going to pass, because that's a good portion of the class. Now, speaking of tests, there is a makeup test policy in general. Now, there isn't a makeup test per se, because I tried this my very first semester and it failed miserably. I had people who just missed tests because, I'll just take it later. And I've had people who, I signed up, all right, come tomorrow and take the test, and they didn't show up. So the easiest way for me, and probably for you, is just simply to make the final exam able to be counted twice. Now, this means you can make up one test. So if you miss, let's say, the word test, you'll get a 0 because you didn't take it. Now, if something comes up and you let me know ahead of time, I will usually let you take it earlier, but almost rarely will I let you take it later unless there's some like extenuating circumstances. I had some people come in, "Whoa, I just overslept." Well, you missed the test. Unless there's something a little more extenuating than that, it's a 0. But your final exam can count twice. So if you made a 90 on the final exam, you'd have a 90 on that test you missed. Once. If you missed multiple tests, why are you missing multiple tests? Now, I often get the question next, well, what if I do very badly on the final exam? It's possible. But if that's the case, if the final exam is your lowest test grade, then it counts once instead of twice. So it won't hurt you near as bad. But if you've done decently on all the tests, that's where that final exam is going to come from. So the likelihood of you acing all the tests and failing the final is relatively low, unless something else is going on. But there you go. There's the list. Syllabus. All little information about the class. If you have any other questions like that, feel free to ask me. Of course, check all the different videos about how things work and stuff like that. And I will see you at the next class.